everyone. So if you missed our session this week, we really missed having you. We had our family night this week, and we had lots of parents come and lots of siblings came, and so it was a lot of fun just to get together, to spend some time in community with one another, with talking and getting to know each other a little better. So we had a really good time this week. We did a really short abbreviated talk, so this video is going to be very short because most of our time was spent kind of community building and just helping us to get a better sense of who we are as a community. So we did a short talk, and it's based on St. Augustine's life and the life of St. Monica as well, which I thought was appropriate considering we were doing a family night with parents and their kids. So yes, so that was the talk that we did this week, and then we did some adoration at the end and just spent time, like I said, talking and getting to know one another better. So the talking we did this week was called Restless Heart, and like I said, it's about St. Augustine. So St. Augustine, he was born in the year 354 to a respectable family, and his father died when he was just a teenager, so that was pretty influential in his life. So but St. Augustine's mother, she was a very devout Christian, and he received a good Christian education because of that. And so when he was only 16, he moved to a big city to continue his studies, and while he lived there, he fell into many sinful passions and lived a life seeking pleasure with no regard to virtue. At the age of 18, he bore a son to a woman from a sinful relationship. As he continued to pursue all of his studies and in his love of knowledge and philosophy, he was led astray to follow many teachings that were anti-Christian at the time, and teachings that pitted science against religion, which, as our 8th graders who are in confirmation could tell you, those two things are not at odds. That was our whole session this past weekend that we did for confirmation, was about how reason and faith are not at odds. So he fell into that kind of trap that was prevalent then and prevalent now as well, that pits science and religion against one another. So he continually sought after the truth, but he was never satisfied with the teaching he discovered or with his life of pleasure, never that full, deep satisfaction. And so he kept searching, and he continued to struggle with continuous seeking until he met Ambrose, who would also later become a saint. And he met him in Italy, and he was intrigued by Ambrose's teaching of Christianity. So St. Augustine's mother, Monica, who also becomes a saint, she prayed endlessly for his conversion. And so I love St. Monica because I just think St. Monica is so like my mom, that often I will wake up and I will have gotten a text at like 3 a.m. from my mom that I didn't see until I, woke up at 8 or 7:30 or whatever, that my mom texted me and said, oh, I just woke up and so I was praying for you. I said a rosary for you. I love you, sweetheart, And so I just think so much of my mother is so much like St. Monica, and I just have a special place in my heart for her because I think that is really like who parents are, is that they worry and they struggle and they pray and they work so hard to keep their kids happy and safe and keep their souls in a good place. And so much of that work is behind the scenes. And so yeah, parenting is a super hard job, so we are so grateful for the good parents that you guys all are. So anyway, St. Augustine's mother, she prayed endlessly for him, and even through all of those challenges and through all of those things that he was doing that were seeking the wrong things, she continued to pray, and just never lost faith that God would come and God would, do his will with her son. And so it wasn't until Augustine was in his 30s that his heart was really captured and convinced through reading of the scriptures that Jesus was the one way to truth and salvation. And he was baptized at the age of 33 by St. Ambrose. And so Augustine, even though he didn't first desire it, he became a priest at the age of 37. And then later in life, as a priest, he was then became a bishop. And then he wrote some really beautiful writings on and philosophy teachings that are some of the greatest writings in our church. And so that background where he, developed all of those thinking skills and all of those ways of looking at the world, those skills came in really handy when he came into his faith life, that he could then have faith and reason all together, and that those things could work together in tandem to show the truth. And so throughout his life, Augustine did so much to defend and promote the truth of the church, and he died on August 28th in 430 at the age of 76, which is like pretty old for that time. So because of his incredible witness of his life and all he did to contribute to the church, not only is he a canonized saint, but he is also declared a doctor of the church, which means that he had a particular importance in promoting and illuminating church teaching. And so St. Augustine's feast day is August 28th, and he's the patron saint of first brewers because of his conversion from living a worldly life of partying, drinking, etc., and worldly pleasures. And he's also the patron saint of printers, theologians, sore eyes, and of various cities. So before his conversion, like we said, St. Augustine lived a life that was not the best. He made some really questionable choices. And so those questionable choices might be kind of familiar to us, that we can, see in our own lives, things like that, maybe not to the same extent, but we can see in our own lives choices like that, or in the lives of our friends or loved ones, choices that are like that, and struggles that are the same as his. And so we know that all of us are desiring happiness, that we're all seeking something that helps us to feel happy and to feel fulfilled. And so he sought that in every place except for in Jesus Christ. And often that is what we are trying to do too, is fill those holes and fill those gaps in our hearts with other things. And so he, like we said, he thought that a life of partying and drinking and all of those things would be the answer to those questions. And so he experienced those things, and at the end, he still found himself empty, and they couldn't fulfill the great desires of his heart for truth and for happiness. So one of the best quotes that he has ever said is he said, "Thou hast made us for thyself, O Lord, and our heart is restless until it finds rest in thee." And so he was restless in his pursuits. He jumped from one thing to another, trying to find something that would make him happy, trying to find something that would bring him peace. And he found nothing but Jesus, who truly brought his soul rest, and nothing but Jesus that gave him the answers and fulfillment he sought after. So one of the greatest gifts that we as Catholics have is the gift of the communion of saints. And so we talked about this at Edge, I think it was the last Wednesday in October. We talked about the communion of the saints and what a gift it is to have that cheerleading section behind us of all of the saints who are in heaven, and they're cheering for us and cheering us on and living as examples for us that we can follow, and that we can follow in that footsteps, follow in those paths. And also, especially in the case of saints like St. Augustine, where we see that they had a very troubled beginning, that they had a lot of struggles and they had a lot of things that they had to overcome. It helps us to see that no matter where we are on our faith journey, no matter if we are in those kind of stumbling places, if we're also struggling with those things, it helps us to know that there is always a plan and there's always a way for us to come to the Lord, and a place for us in the Lord's table, that he calls us there to him constantly. So that was one thing that we did on Wednesday night when we went to our small groups. We talked about maybe what inspired us about St. Augustine, or we talked about parents could kind of tell us if there were examples of saints that they looked to in different times, like maybe St. Monica, or maybe, St. Michael, or there are lots of different saints that we pick and we say, this saint really resonates with my life, and I like this saint, and this is a person I turn to. And so that was one of the things we talked about this week too. So if you have a powerful saint that you like to turn to, and that's the saint that you like to ask for their intercessions, share that with your kiddos. And yeah, so that was kind of where we were this week, that we talked about St. Monica, St. Augustine, that beautiful relationship, and we talked about saints in our lives who help us and encourage us to go on and do our best. So yes, so that was this week, and we had a really good time. We really missed having you if you could not join us this week. No class next week because Thanksgiving, so enjoy your Thanksgiving. I pray that you will have a happy, safe holiday with each other, lots of family time. So we'll see you guys in 2 weeks. Thanks so much. Bye.